I was halfway through fixing the broken hinge on the kitchen cabinet when I heard Ashley laughing. Not her usual laugh, not the one she used when I told a bad joke or when we watched some stupid sitcom together. No, this was different, lighter, breathier, almost rehearsed. I leaned back on my heels, screwdriver in hand, listening. "No, stop, you're ridiculous," she said, her voice carrying from the living room. A pause. Then more laughter. I frowned. Who was she talking to? See, Ashley wasn't a laugh-out-loud kind of person. She had humor, sure, but it was the kind that required a dry delivery and a raised eyebrow. This was like someone had replaced my wife with a rom-com character. I didn't move right away. Instead, I sat there, staring at the crooked cabinet door, weighing my options. I could walk in and pretend I needed something. Maybe grab a book from the shelf or look for my car keys. Normal husband things. Or I could sit here and do what most men in my situation do, assume I was overthinking it, and go back to whatever I was doing. I decided on a third option, one that didn't require effort but still fed my curiosity. I stayed put and listened. "Yeah, I don't know." "You're terrible." Another giggle. "Okay, fine. But if you get me in trouble, I'm blaming you." A long pause. Then, softer. "No, he's home." Ah, see, I wasn't a fool. I had two working eyes and a brain that functioned well enough to connect dots. Ashley and I had been together for 10 years, married for 8. I knew every version of her voice, when she was happy, when she was annoyed, when she was lying. And that was her lying voice. Now, a smarter man, one with self-respect and an ounce of dignity, probably would have walked in right then and confronted her. But I've never been accused of being particularly bright when it comes to my personal life. So instead, I decided to test something. I stood up and walked toward the living room, making sure to step on the creaky floorboard near the doorway. Ashley's head snapped toward me, eyes widening for a split second before she forced herself to relax. She was sitting on the couch, phone in hand, curled up like she hadn't just been flirting with someone who wasn't me. "Oh, hey," she said, tucking her hair behind her ear like she'd been caught doing something as innocent as scrolling through recipes. "What's up?" I stretched, letting out a long sigh. "Nothing much. Just wondering what's so funny." She smiled. "Oh, just talking to Melissa." Melissa, her friend from work. The one with the personality of a wet sponge and the emotional depth of a vending machine. I nodded slowly, rubbing my chin. "Huh, must be a pretty funny conversation." "Yeah, you know Melissa," she said quickly, looking down at her phone like it owed her money. "She's ridiculous." "Right. Melissa. The woman whose idea of humor was sending me Pinterest links to DIY home projects I'd never do." I scratched my head. "Weird, 'cause I could have sworn I heard you say, 'If you get me in trouble, I'm blaming you.'" Ashley froze for half a second. A blink, a subtle tightening of her jaw. Then she forced a laugh. "Oh, yeah, that was just, about work stuff. You know how it is." I did not, in fact, know how it was. But I also knew I wasn't getting anything out of her now. So I did what any mature, emotionally stable man would do in this situation. I dropped it. For now. I walked to the kitchen, grabbed a beer, and sat at the table, pretending I wasn't running through every possible scenario in my head. Ashley stayed in the living room for another few minutes, but I noticed something interesting. She didn't laugh again. A few days passed. I didn't bring it up again, and Ashley acted like nothing happened. But something was different. The way she moved around the house, the way she avoided certain conversations, the way she hesitated before answering simple questions. And then, the opportunity came. It was Saturday, and we had plans to go to her coworker's engagement party. A boring event filled with people I didn't know, standing around making small talk about wedding venues and overpriced catering. Ashley had been getting ready in the bedroom, so I was in the hallway, debating if I could fake food poisoning to get out of it, when her phone buzzed on the dresser. And since fate has a twisted sense of humor, I glanced over, just in time to see the name on the screen. Ryan. Ryan. A name that meant absolutely nothing to me. The message preview popped up before the screen dimmed. Just a short line. 5 words. "Tonight is still happening, right?" I stood there, staring at the phone like it had personally offended me. Then, without thinking, I did something I never thought I'd do. I grabbed it. Not to snoop. No, I wasn't that kind of husband. But just to hold it. To confirm to myself that I had actually seen what I thought I had seen. The moment my fingers touched the screen, Ashley walked in. She stopped mid-step, her expression neutral but her eyes screaming something else entirely. I looked at her, then at the phone, then back at her. I held it up slightly. Ryan, huh? She didn't blink, didn't breathe. And that's when I knew. Not because she panicked, not because she lunged for the phone, but because of the way her expression went completely blank, like she had already planned for this moment, like she had been waiting for it. And that, more than anything, told me everything I needed to know. Ashley looked at me like I had just accused her of international espionage. Not angry, not panicked, just calculating. The kind of look someone gives when they're trying to figure out whether playing fool is still an option or if it's time to start running damage control. Give me my phone, Mark. She didn't say it like a request, more like a command, which was funny because last I checked, I was still the guy paying half the bills in this house. I turned the phone in my hand, not unlocking it, not scrolling, just holding it like a piece of evidence in a crime I hadn't quite figured out yet. Who's Ryan? I asked, keeping my voice casual. Ashley sighed, like I had just asked her to explain long division. A guy from work. I raised an eyebrow. Uh-huh. And what's happening tonight? Her jaw tightened for half a second before she forced a smile. A group from work is going out. I didn't think you'd want to come, so I didn't mention it. Now, let's get something straight. I wasn't born yesterday. If a woman is hiding something, she won't make the mistake of overselling her innocence right away. No, she'll start small, keep it vague, and hope you lose interest before you start asking real questions. And that's exactly what she was doing, throwing out just enough information to sound reasonable without actually explaining anything. Funny, I said, tilting my head. You didn't mention it at all. Like, at no point. You just forgot. Ashley crossed her arms, her patience apparently already gone. Mark, I don't have to tell you every single thing I do. True, I said, nodding. But in this case, it probably would have been a good idea, considering your boy Ryan seems very invested in tonight's plans. She rolled her eyes so hard I thought she might hurt herself. You're making a big deal out of nothing. Ah, yes. The classic defense. If you get caught doing something shady, act like the person calling you out is the crazy one. I tapped the phone against my palm. So, if I unlock this, I'm gonna find a whole lot of work talk and absolutely nothing weird? Ashley's face barely changed, but I saw the flicker. That tiny, split-second hesitation before she responded. She shrugged. Go ahead. That threw me for a second. It was too easy. She was either supremely confident in her ability to cover her tracks, or she had already thought 3 moves ahead and knew I wouldn't actually do it. I handed her the phone. She took it, typed in her code, then held it up so I could see the messages. Sure enough, the conversation with Ryan was mostly office gossip and harmless chit-chat. No declarations of love, no inappropriate photos, nothing. I almost laughed. Not because I believed it, but because I had to give her credit for committing to the bit. Huh, I said, pretending to be impressed. Look at that. So innocent. Almost like, I don't know, like maybe you deleted the real conversation. Ashley's expression flickered again, but she covered it fast. Wow, she said, shaking her head. You're really going full detective mode, huh? Just seems weird, I said, crossing my arms. Because if I had nothing to hide, I wouldn't be acting like someone about to apply for witness protection. Ashley exhaled through her nose, the way she did when she was trying not to lose her temper. I can't believe this, she muttered. I haven't done anything, and you're treating me like a criminal. I smiled. Nah, if I were treating you like a criminal, I'd be asking for security footage. Ashley groaned, rubbing her temples like I was giving her a migraine. I don't have time for this. We're going to be late for the party. I wanted to push more, to see how far she'd go with the act, but I had a better idea. See, the best way to catch someone in a lie isn't to confront them directly, it's to let them think they've gotten away with it. So I backed off. You're right, I said, grabbing my jacket. Let's go. Ashley blinked, caught off guard by my sudden agreement. Wait, that's it. I shrugged. I believe you. That was the first lie I told that night. We drove to the engagement party in silence, Ashley occasionally glancing at me like she was trying to figure out if I had actually let it go or if I was planning to bring it up again later. She didn't need to worry, because I wasn't going to argue. I wasn't going to fight. I was just going to let her hang herself with her own rope. By the time we arrived, Ashley had shifted into social mode, greeting people with a smile and acting like we hadn't just had a weird, tense conversation about some guy from work. I played along, chatting with people, pretending everything was fine. And then, the fun part. About an hour into the party, Ashley excused herself to the bathroom. I waited exactly 5 minutes before following. Not to the bathroom, but to the parking lot. And there, across the street, parked a little too conveniently, was a car I didn't recognize. And in that car, sitting in the driver's seat, checking his phone, was a guy who looked way too comfortable waiting for something or someone. Now, I didn't have proof that this was Ryan, but I had a feeling, and I've learned to trust my instincts. So I walked up to the car. The guy looked up, eyes narrowing slightly as I approached. "Hey," I said, smiling. "Waiting for someone?" He hesitated. Nah, just parked here for a second." "Uh-huh." I nodded, glancing at my watch. "You sure? 'Cause I think I might know who you're waiting for." His face barely changed, but I saw it. That same flicker of recognition, the one Ashley had when I asked about him. I grinned. "Tell you what, if you're just hanging out, why don't you come inside? Meet my wife." The guy swallowed hard. "I should get going." I stepped aside, gesturing toward the road. "Yeah, you probably should." Without another word, he started the car and drove off. I watched him go, then turned and walked back to the party, already planning my next move. Because Ashley thought she was smart, but she wasn't smart enough. I walked back into the party like nothing had happened, grabbed a drink, and made small talk with a guy who was way too excited about his fantasy football team. Meanwhile, my brain was running in the background, processing everything. Ashley had a guy waiting outside. He panicked and drove off the second I confronted him. And now, the only thing left to do was see how deep this rabbit hole went. Ashley returned from the bathroom a few minutes later, smiling like she hadn't just left me alone at a party to go do something incredibly suspicious. "Everything okay?" she asked, taking a sip from her wine glass. I smiled. "Yeah, just met someone interesting outside." Her fingers tensed slightly around the glass, but her face stayed neutral. "Oh, yeah," I said, nodding toward the window. "Some guy just hanging out in his car across the street. Looked like he was waiting for someone." Ashley blinked. "And you talked to him?" "Of course," I said, raising my eyebrows. What kind of person sees a guy sitting in a car all alone outside a party and doesn't go say hi? She let out a small laugh, but it was forced. "That's kind of weird, Mark." "I thought so too," I said, watching her carefully. "Especially since he left the second I asked if he was waiting for someone." Ashley's smile flickered for half a second, and I swear I could hear the gears in her head shifting. She was calculating, trying to figure out how much I knew and whether she needed to spin a story or pretend none of this was happening. She went with option B. "Well, I don't know what to tell you," she said, brushing it off like I had just asked her to explain the weather. "People park places. It doesn't mean anything." "Totally," I said, nodding. "And, people also delete text messages. That also doesn't mean anything, right?" Ashley's lips pressed together. "Are we really doing this here?" I shrugged. "We're not doing anything. I'm just making observations." She sighed and glanced around the party, making sure no one was watching before lowering her voice. "Mark, you need to let this go." That was funny, because as far as I was concerned, she was the one who needed to let Ryan go. But I didn't say that. Not yet. Instead, I smiled, finished my drink, and clapped my hands together. "You're right. I'll drop it." Ashley's shoulders relaxed slightly. "Thank you." I grinned. "For now." She shot me a look, but I was already walking away, making my rounds through the party, keeping my eyes open for anything else that seemed off. Ashley spent the rest of the night hovering a little too close to me, like she thought I might start interrogating guests at random. Smart move, because I was definitely considering it. The party finally ended, and we drove home in silence. Ashley scrolled through her phone, probably double-checking that all her evidence was properly erased, while I stared at the road, thinking. I needed a plan, and I already had one. Ashley had made a mistake, a small one, but big enough for me to catch. The problem was, I still didn't have the full picture. I had suspicion, I had weird behavior, but what I needed was something undeniable. So I did what any reasonable man in my situation would do. I waited until Ashley was asleep, then got out of bed, grabbed my laptop, and started digging. Now, let's be clear. I wasn't going to hack into anything. That's illegal, and also, I don't have those skills. But what I could do was use the knowledge I already had. First stop? Our shared cell phone plan. I logged in and pulled up the call logs. Because while Ashley could delete texts, she couldn't delete the fact that they existed. And sure enough, there he was. Ryan. Multiple calls. Repeated numbers. All clustered around times when she had supposedly been working late or out with friends. Interesting. I clicked through a few more tabs and found something even better, a location history feature she clearly hadn't realized was enabled. I clicked on the last few weekends and, oh, look at that. Ashley had been taking little detours before coming home. Not just once. Not twice. 3 separate occasions, all leading to the same address. Now, I'm not a genius, but I'm pretty sure when your wife is making secret pit stops at some random location multiple times, it's not because she's checking the air pressure in her tires. I copied the address into Google Maps. And that's when things got really interesting. Because this wasn't just some guy's house. It was a gym. A 24-hour gym. Ashley had never stepped foot in a gym in our entire marriage. In fact, she actively avoided them. She once said, and I quote, "I'd rather set my shoes on fire than pay to run on a treadmill." So either she had suddenly developed a deep and passionate love for exercise, or Ryan was a personal trainer. And I was willing to bet my next paycheck it wasn't the first option. I sat back, staring at the screen, debating my next move. I could confront her right now. Wake her up, shove the laptop in her face, demand an explanation. But no, that would be too easy. I wanted to see how much longer she thought she could keep this up. So I closed the laptop, went back to bed, and pretended to be asleep when Ashley shifted beside me. Because the best way to catch a liar? Let them think they're still winning. The next morning, I played it cool. Not just because I had the patience of a saint, because I absolutely didn't, but because I wanted to see how long Ashley could keep up the act before she tripped over her own lies. She rolled out of bed like it was any other morning, stretching and yawning like she hadn't been busy sneaking around. I sat at the kitchen table, drinking my coffee, scrolling through my phone like I wasn't already 5 steps ahead of her. "Morning," she said, tying her hair up. "Morning," I replied, sipping my coffee. Ashley opened the fridge, took out some orange juice, and poured herself a glass. The fact that she actually looked relaxed ticked me off a little. If I were in her shoes, hypothetically speaking, I'd at least have the decency to look a little guilty. But nope. Nothing. "So," I said, setting my cup down. "What's the plan for today?" She turned, leaning against the counter. "Work. Then I might meet up with Melissa." "Ah, yes. Melissa." The default name she pulled out whenever she needed to create a vague, unverifiable alibi. If Melissa had $1 for every time she was used as an excuse, she'd be able to retire early. "That's nice," I said, nodding. "Where are you meeting?" Ashley blinked. "Not long. Just a fraction of a second." But I caught it. Not sure yet," she said, grabbing her phone and pretending to check her messages. She hasn't decided. Right. Because that's how people make plans. They just wander around aimlessly, hoping they'll eventually bump into each other. I smiled. "Cool. Tell her I said hi." Ashley gave me a quick glance, trying to read me. She knew something was off. She just didn't know what. She finished her juice, grabbed her bag, and kissed me on the cheek before heading out the door. I waited exactly 5 minutes before grabbing my laptop and pulling up the location tracker again. Now, before anyone judges me, let's get one thing straight. I didn't want to be the kind of husband who tracked his wife's movements. But when your spouse is acting like a part-time magician, making certain details of their life disappear, sometimes you have to take matters into your own hands. I refreshed the page. And just like before, Ashley's little blue dot wasn't heading anywhere near work. It was heading straight for the gym. Now, I could have confronted her right then and there. Called her, asked her why she was making a detour, listened to whatever excuse she came up with on the spot. But where's the fun in that? Instead, I grabbed my keys, got in my car, and decided to pay Ryan's Fitness Wonderland a little visit. The drive over was interesting. Not because of the scenery, I had seen all these streets a million times, but because I was playing a mental game of how will she lie about this later. Option 1. Oh, I just stopped by to check it out. You know, thinking about getting in shape. That was an obvious lie. Ashley once pulled a muscle reaching for the remote and had to ice her shoulder for 2 days. Option 2. Melissa wanted to go, and I tagged along. Decent, but it required Melissa to be on board, and something told me she hadn't been briefed yet. Option 3. The panicked improvisation method. Also known as, "Mark, why are you being weird? It's just a gym." I parked a few spots away from Ashley's car, leaned back in my seat, and waited. Sure enough, 5 minutes later, she walked through the entrance, dressed in leggings and a tank top. I frowned. When did she even buy workout clothes? I gave it another 10 minutes before following her in. Not straight away, though. I wasn't about to march in like a jealous husband demanding answers. No, I was just a regular guy, checking out a gym. The front desk lady greeted me with a fake smile. "First time here?" "Yup," I said. thinking of signing up. She handed me a pamphlet filled with membership options that I had absolutely no intention of reading. Feel free to look around. Perfect. I walked in casually, scanning the room. It wasn't a huge gym, just one of those standard places with too many mirrors and guys who thought grunting loudly would make them stronger. And then I spotted her. Ashley. And Ryan. Now, let me be clear, if Ashley had been on a treadmill, running in place like she was training for the Olympics, I might have given her the benefit of the doubt. But no. She was leaning against the wall, laughing at something Ryan said, while he stood there not working out either. And that's when it clicked. This wasn't about fitness. This was about Ryan's gym membership discount plan. I didn't approach them. I didn't need to. I had already seen enough. Instead, I casually walked back out, nodded at the front desk lady, and went home. Ashley came back later that evening, dropping her gym bag by the door like she had just completed the most exhausting workout of her life. Melissa canceled, she said, stretching her arms. So I just went to the gym. I stared at her. Huh. Really? She nodded. Yeah. Thought I'd give it a try. I took a deep breath, letting her lies settle into the air between us. How was it? Ashley shrugged. It was different. I don't know if it's for me yet. Yeah, I said, nodding. Figured. Since, you spent most of your time standing around talking to Ryan. Ashley froze. That was it. The moment. I had thrown the bait, and now I was just waiting to see what excuse she would come up with. What? She said, forcing a laugh. Ryan? What are you talking about? I tilted my head. Ashley. I was there. Her mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. She had planned for a lot of things. This wasn't one of them. Now, most people, when caught in a lie, have two options: deny or confess. Ashley, being the overachiever that she was, chose option 3, complete system failure. She blinked. Wait, you were at the gym? That's what I just said. She let out a weird half-laugh. What? Why would you even Because, Ashley, you told me you were meeting Melissa. And instead, you went to a gym you've never set foot in before, dressed like you actually work out, and had a very fun-looking conversation with your personal trainer friend. Ashley's lips parted again, as if she wanted to say something, anything. But for the first time in this entire situation, she had nothing. No pre-planned excuse. No fake scenario. Just silence. And that, more than anything, told me I had finally backed her into a corner. Ashley stood there, frozen, like a computer stuck in an endless loading screen. If I listened close enough, I could almost hear her brain struggling to come up with an excuse that wouldn't immediately collapse under the weight of logic. I watched, mildly entertained, as she cycled through what I could only assume were the standard responses. Denial? Already off the table. Deflection? Too late. Anger? She could try, but that would just be admitting defeat in a different way. Okay, she finally said, her voice a little too casual. I guess you saw me talking to Ryan. I nodded. Yup. She exhaled, probably hoping that if she sighed long enough, the situation would reset itself. Mark, you're making this into something weird. Oh, I'm making it weird? I asked, raising an eyebrow. So me showing up at a public gym is weird, but you mysteriously developing an interest in fitness and conveniently spending all your time talking to a personal trainer is completely normal? Ashley shifted her weight from one foot to the other, trying to act like this was just an ordinary conversation and not the slow, painful unraveling of her carefully constructed lie. I was just asking him some stuff, she said. About working out. Ah, yes, I said, nodding like that was the most reasonable thing I'd ever heard. That explains why you weren't actually doing any working out. Must have been a very intense consultation. Did he at least give you a certificate of completion? Ashley rolled her eyes. You're being ridiculous. Oh, absolutely, I said, crossing my arms. You've definitely given me a solid reason to believe that nothing weird is going on. I mean, lying about meeting Melissa, sneaking off to a gym, deleting texts, these are all classic signs of a completely boring and innocent situation. Ashley's jaw clenched slightly. I didn't lie about Melissa. I was going to meet her, but she canceled, so I went to the gym instead. Right. So instead of just telling me that, you let me believe something else. I tilted my head. Which, fun fact, is still lying. She let out another sigh, this one filled with the kind of frustration people use when they want to make it seem like you're the unreasonable one. Mark, I really don't have the energy for this. Well, lucky for you, you're already signed up for a gym, I said. Maybe Ryan can help you build some stamina. Her nostrils flared slightly, and I had to bite the inside of my cheek to stop myself from laughing. There it was. That tiny flicker of irritation. She wasn't mad that I was accusing her of anything, she was mad that I wasn't falling for it. Ashley ran a hand through her hair, clearly trying to figure out how to get out of this conversation with the least amount of damage. Look, I don't know what you think is happening, but you need to stop acting like some jealous, paranoid husband. I blinked. Jealous? I repeated. Ashley, if I were jealous, I'd be worried about losing you. Right now, I'm just figuring out how long it'll take before you stop embarrassing yourself. She folded her arms. Oh, so now you're mocking me? I mean, it's either that or pretend this is a serious conversation, I said. And honestly, you're not giving me a lot to work with. Ashley took a deep breath, probably counting to 10 in her head like she always did when she was trying not to explode. You know what, she said. Believe whatever you want. I don't have time for this. And with that, she turned on her heel and walked to the bedroom, shutting the door behind her like she just won the argument. I stared at the closed door, shaking my head. She really thought that was it. That all she had to do was pretend to be exasperated, pull the classic, I can't deal with this right now move, and I'd drop it. Cute. I grabbed my laptop, sat back down at the kitchen table, and pulled up the gym's website. Let's see what Ryan was all about. I scrolled through the staff page until I found him. Ryan Carter. Personal trainer. Smug face. Way too many muscles for a guy who supposedly helps others get fit, but clearly spends more time admiring himself in the mirror. I clicked on his profile, and that's when I saw it. A booking calendar. Apparently, Ryan's clients could schedule sessions online, and, conveniently enough, there was an option to view past sessions. Now, was it my business? Technically, no. Was I going to look anyway? Absolutely. I clicked the button, and there it was. Ashley Carter, weekly training sessions, Wednesday and Saturday. Weekly? Now, I might not be a gym expert, but I'm pretty sure working out once before deciding if you like it makes more sense than committing to a weekly schedule with a guy whose entire personality revolved around flexing and bad lighting. Ashley had already been going for weeks, and she never mentioned it. I leaned back, drumming my fingers against the table. At this point, I wasn't even mad. I was just fascinated by how bold she was. Did she really think I was this stupid? That I wouldn't notice the inconsistencies, the weird behavior, the blatant lies? And more importantly, what exactly was she getting out of this? I mean, let's be real. If she was actually having an affair, why a gym trainer? There had to be better options. Less obvious ones. I stared at Ryan's stupid face on the website. Or maybe that was exactly the point. Ashley probably thought this was the perfect cover. A trainer. Someone with a built-in excuse for spending time together. Someone she could justify seeing without raising suspicion. Except, she forgot one tiny little detail. I wasn't a fool. I closed the laptop, sat back, and thought. Ashley was in the bedroom, probably texting Ryan about how I was acting weird or being paranoid. Ryan was probably flexing in the mirror somewhere, blissfully unaware that I now had receipts. And me? I was just waiting. Because at this point, the only question left was how much longer was she going to keep lying to my face before she finally cracked? I wasn't going to let Ashley know that I had all the information. Not yet. See, people like her don't confess because they feel guilty. They confess because they run out of ways to keep lying. And I wasn't about to let her take the easy way out. So, for the next few days, I played dumb. Acted normal. Went to work. Came home. Had dinner with my wonderful, definitely not lying wife. And all the while, I watched her. Ashley wasn't stupid. She knew something was off. She kept throwing little test questions my way, probably trying to gauge if I was still suspicious. How was your day? She'd ask, all sweet and casual. Oh, great, I'd say, smiling. Very productive. You. She'd hesitate for half a second before answering. Busy. Just a lot of work stuff. Ah, I'd nod. And Ryan. Her grip would tighten around whatever she was holding, a fork, a phone, a glass of water. What? I'd shrug, just wondering how his workouts are going. She'd force a laugh. Mark? Seriously? And I'd chuckle, shake my head, and change the subject. Let her think she still had control. That's the thing about liars. The second they think they're safe, they get comfortable. And when they get comfortable, they get sloppy. Ashley was already slipping. One evening, she mentioned she had to stay late at work. Big project, she said, barely looking up from her phone. Now, past me, the trusting, oblivious version of me might have said, "Oh, okay. See you later." Present me, though, I just smiled. "No problem. I'll drop by and bring you some coffee." Ashley blinked, her mouth opening slightly before she quickly covered. Oh, that's sweet. But I'll be in meetings all night. Meetings, I repeated. At 7 o'clock? She nodded. Yeah, conference calls with our London team. That was a nice touch. The old international business excuse. Hard to verify, impossible to argue. Except for one tiny problem. Ashley's company didn't have an office in London. I knew that because I was the one who helped her update her resume before she got the job. I leaned back, crossing my arms. Got it. Late-night meetings. Guess I'll just see you when you get home. She smiled, clearly relieved that I had bought it. Of course, she said, standing up and grabbing her bag. Love you. I smiled back. Love you too. And then I waited. 15 minutes after she left, I opened my laptop, refreshed the location tracker, and wow, what a shocking turn of events. She was headed to the gym. For a meeting. With the London office. I didn't follow her this time. I didn't need to. The pieces had already fallen into place. At this point, I was just letting her dig her own grave. And boy, was she shoveling fast. The final straw came 2 days later. I was at home when I got a text from Ashley. Ashley, heading out to run some errands. Be back in a bit. I checked the tracker. Gym. Again. That was it. That was the moment I decided I was done playing. I grabbed my keys, drove straight to the gym, and parked across the street. And just like clockwork, there she was. Ashley, standing in the parking lot. With Ryan. And no, they weren't working out. They were way too close. Talking. Smiling. Ashley was touching his arm in that way people do when they're just so engaged in a conversation. And then, the cherry on top. Ryan leaned in. And Ashley didn't back away. I didn't need to see any more. I wasn't going to walk over there and make a scene. I wasn't going to yell or fight or demand explanations. Because honestly, she wasn't worth it. Instead, I pulled out my phone, snapped a single picture, and drove home. By the time Ashley came back, I was sitting at the kitchen table, waiting. She walked in, all casual, setting her bag down like she hadn't just spent the last hour flirting with Ryan in a parking lot. Hey, she said. What's for dinner? I smiled. Oh, I already ate. She blinked. You ate without me? I nodded. Yeah. Didn't know how long your errands would take. Something in my voice must have tipped her off because she hesitated. Mark, is something wrong? I tilted my head. You tell me. She let out a small laugh, but it was nervous. What's going on? I slid my phone across the table. Ashley picked it up, looked at the screen, and all the color drained from her face. For a second, I thought she might try to deny it. That she'd come up with one last, desperate lie. But no. She just stared at the picture, the one of her and Ryan, standing a little too close in that gym parking lot, like her entire world had just imploded. I leaned back. So, I said, you want to tell me how long this has been going on, or should I just guess? Ashley swallowed hard. Mark. I held up a hand. Save it. She closed her mouth. I stood up, stretching my arms like this was just another normal night. Here's what's going to happen, I said. I'm going to pack a bag. I'm going to leave. And you? You're going to have all the time in the world to figure out if you and personal trainer Barbie over there are worth this mess. Ashley's eyes widened. You're leaving. I laughed. Oh, don't act surprised. What did you think was going to happen? That I'd just ignore it? Maybe join you guys for a workout? She looked like she wanted to argue, but what could she even say? She had been caught, and for once, there was nothing she could do about it. I walked past her, heading for the bedroom. Mark, wait, she said, following me. Can we just talk about this? I glanced at her. Ashley, you've been talking this whole time. You just weren't saying anything real. She opened her mouth, then closed it. I grabbed my bag, threw some clothes in, and zipped it up. Ashley stood there, wringing her hands, like she had just now realized that actions actually have consequences. I slung the bag over my shoulder, turned to her one last time, and smiled. Enjoy the gym, I said. And then I walked out the door. Thanks for watching. Rate the story in the comments. Subscribe to the channel